There's a moment that comes to everyone. A moment when you're standing at the edge of something important, something that could change everything, and you feel it rising inside you. Not confidence, not certainty, but something deeper, something that whispers, I will not quit. I will not break. I will see this through. That's determination. And Marcus Aurelius knew that this single quality, this unwavering resolve, was the difference between those who prosper and those who merely survive. But here's what most people don't understand. Determination isn't about force. It's not about grinding yourself into dust or pushing through with sheer willpower until you collapse. True determination, the kind that makes everything you touch flourish, comes from a completely different place. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand exactly where that place is. You'll know how to access it, and you'll discover why Marcus Aurelius believed that with the right kind of determination, failure becomes impossible. Because what if I told you that everything you've been taught about success and willpower is incomplete? What if the secret to prosperity isn't working harder but working from a deeper source? Stay with me. What you're about to learn changes everything. Before we begin this transformation together, I need you to do something. If this resonates with you, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, comment your thoughts below, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps this wisdom reach more people. Now let's dive deep. Let's start with a truth that might sting. Motivation is a lie. Not because it doesn't exist, but because we've been taught to rely on it, to wait for it, to believe that without it, we can't move forward. And that dependency has crippled more dreams than failure ever could. Think about it. How many times have you set a goal, felt that initial surge of excitement, that fire in your chest that made you believe anything was possible? And how many times did that fire fade? Days later, weeks later, when the excitement wore off and reality set in, when the work became mundane, when progress became slow. That's when most people quit. They say they lost motivation. They say they lost the drive. They wait for it to come back like waiting for a bus that never arrives. But Marcus Aurelius never talked about motivation. He talked about determination. And these are not the same thing. Motivation is an emotion. It rises and falls like waves. It depends on how you feel, what's happening around you, whether circumstances are favorable. It's unreliable, it's temporary. It's a fair weather friend that abandons you exactly when you need it most. Determination is different. Determination is a decision, a commitment, a line drawn in the sand that says, this matters to me, and I will move toward it regardless of how I feel. Marcus wrote in his meditations, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Read that again. You have power over your mind, not your emotions, not your motivation, your mind, your decision-making capacity, your ability to choose action even when every fiber of your being wants to choose comfort. This is the foundation of true determination. It's not about feeling like doing something. It's about doing it anyway. Most people are waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel inspired, waiting to feel confident. And while they're waiting, life is passing them by. Opportunities are disappearing. Dreams are dying quiet deaths. But the people who prosper, the ones whose endeavors actually flourish, they understand something fundamental. Action creates feeling, not the other way around. You don't wait until you feel determined to act. You act, and determination emerges from the action itself. Think about the last time you really didn't want to do something but forced yourself to start anyway. Maybe it was a workout, a difficult conversation, a creative project. What happened? Once you got into it, once you broke through that initial resistance, didn't something shift? Didn't the momentum start carrying you? That's the secret. The resistance is always highest at the beginning, and motivation tells you to wait until the resistance lowers. But determination tells you to push through it, knowing that on the other side is flow, momentum, progress. Marcus Aurelius lived this every single day. He was emperor of Rome, thrust into a position he never asked for, facing wars, plagues, betrayals, impossible decisions. Do you think he woke up every morning feeling motivated? Feeling inspired to face the chaos? No. But he had determined that his duty mattered, that his role required him to show up, and so he did. Day after day. Not because he felt like it, but because he had decided that this was what his life demanded of him. And everything he touched, despite the overwhelming challenges, prospered. Not because he had special advantages, but because he had unshakable determination rooted in something deeper than emotion. This is what we're building toward. This is what you need to understand if you want your life, your work, your relationships to truly flourish. You need to stop waiting for motivation and start cultivating determination. You need to stop relying on how you feel and start relying on who you've decided to be. Because feelings are temporary, but decisions, real decisions backed by determination, those are permanent. Those reshape your entire life. So if determination isn't about motivation, if it's not about forcing yourself through willpower alone, then where does it come from? What's the source? Marcus Aurelius gives us the answer. Purpose. Not goals, not achievements, not external markers of success, but purpose. The deep internal why that makes everything else make sense. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Notice the simplicity, right and true. These are the coordinates. These are what determination aligns with. Most people's determination fails because it's built on shaky ground. They want something because it looks good, because society says it's valuable, because other people have it, because they think it will make them happy. But these aren't real reasons. They're borrowed reasons. And when things get hard, when sacrifice is required, when the path becomes unclear, borrowed reasons aren't strong enough to sustain you. Real determination requires real purpose. And real purpose comes from knowing yourself deeply enough to understand what actually matters to you. Not what should matter, not what you've been told matters, but what resonates in the deepest part of your being when all the noise is stripped away. This is the work most people avoid, because it requires solitude. It requires reflection. It requires the courage to admit that maybe what you've been chasing doesn't actually align with who you are. Carl Jung called this process individuation. The journey of becoming your authentic self rather than the self that society, family, and culture have tried to shape you into. And it's uncomfortable, because you might discover that the career path you've been on doesn't fulfill you, that the relationship you're in doesn't nourish you, that the goals you've set don't excite you. But this discomfort is necessary, because determination without authentic purpose is just stubbornness. It's grinding towards something that won't satisfy you even if you achieve it. Marcus understood this. Despite being emperor, despite having access to everything the ancient world could offer, he constantly questioned what truly mattered. He asked himself, what is the purpose of this action? What virtue am I expressing? What am I contributing? These questions kept his determination aligned with something meaningful. They prevented him from wasting his energy on empty pursuits. And this is what you need to do. You need to get clear on your purpose, not your goals. Your purpose, the reason you're here, the contribution you're meant to make, the values you're meant to embody. When you have that clarity, determination becomes natural, because you're no longer forcing yourself to do things you don't really care about. You're channeling your energy towards something that genuinely matters to you. And when something genuinely matters, when it connects to your core purpose, you'll find reserves of strength you didn't know you had. You'll push through obstacles that would have stopped you before. You'll persist when others quit. Not because you're superhuman, but because you're aligned, because your determination is rooted in something real. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people training for a marathon. One is doing it because they think it will impress others. The other is doing it because they're raising money for a cause that saved their child's life. Who do you think will have more determination when the training gets brutal? When it's raining and cold and their body is screaming at them to quit? The one with the deeper purpose. Every time. That's the power of purpose-driven determination. It transforms suffering from something meaningless into something meaningful. It makes sacrifice feel like contribution rather than loss, and everything you do from this place prospers. Not because it's easy, but because it's aligned, because you're no longer fighting against yourself. You're moving with the current of your deepest truth. This is what Marcus Aurelius teaches us. Determination without purpose is exhausting, but determination rooted in purpose is unstoppable. So before you can cultivate real determination, you need to get clear on what you're determined for. Not what you think you should want, but what actually calls to you when you're quiet enough to listen. That's where the journey begins. Purpose gives you direction, but determination is what gets you there. And determination, at its core, is built through daily discipline. Not the harsh, punishing kind of discipline that's all about restriction and suffering, but the kind that Marcus Aurelius practiced, the discipline of showing up, consistently, reliably, even when it's inconvenient. He wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love. Then make thy effort. Make thy effort, not when you feel like it, not when circumstances are perfect, but simply because you're alive and capable. This is the discipline that makes everything prosper, the commitment to take action every single day, regardless of conditions." Most people operate on feelings. If they feel good, they work hard. If they feel bad, they coast. If they're inspired, they create. If they're uninspired, they wait. But this approach guarantees inconsistency, and inconsistency guarantees mediocrity. Because success in anything, prosperity in any endeavor, comes from compounding. Small actions repeated consistently over time. You can't compound inconsistency. You can only compound consistency. Think about water eroding stone. A single drop does nothing, but drops falling in the same place day after day, year after year, eventually carve through solid rock. That's the power of daily commitment. Your determination needs to operate the same way, not as occasional bursts of intense effort followed by long periods of inactivity, but as steady, consistent action directed toward your purpose. And here's what's beautiful. When you commit to showing up daily, even when you don't feel like it, something remarkable happens. The resistance decreases. The action becomes easier. The discipline becomes identity. You stop being someone who's trying to be disciplined. You become someone who is disciplined. It's no longer something you do. It's who you are. Marcus Aurelius embodied this completely. Every morning he got up and did what needed to be done, not because each day was easy, but because he had determined that his role required consistency, that the empire needed him to be reliable, not emotional. And this daily discipline, this commitment to showing up regardless of how he felt, created stability, not just for him, but for everyone who depended on him. Your life works the same way. When you're inconsistent, everything becomes unstable. Your progress fluctuates, your confidence wavers, your results remain unpredictable. But when you commit to daily action, when you build the discipline of consistency, everything stabilizes. Progress becomes inevitable. Confidence builds naturally. Results compound. This is how determination makes everything prosper, not through dramatic gestures or occasional heroics, but through the quiet power of showing up, day after day, doing the work even when no one's watching. Let me ask you, what's one thing you know you should be doing daily that you're not? Maybe it's writing, maybe it's exercising, maybe it's meditating, maybe it's working on your business, maybe it's having real conversations with your partner. You know what it is, and you know why you're not doing it consistently. You're waiting to feel like it, you're waiting for the perfect conditions, you're waiting for motivation. But what if you just decided? What if you made a commitment right now that for the next 30 days you'll show up and do that thing regardless of how you feel? Not perfectly, not for hours. Just show up, even if it's only for 10 minutes, even if it feels forced, even if you're not inspired. Do you know what would happen? By day 10, the resistance would decrease. By day 20, you'd start seeing results. By day 30, it would be part of who you are. And 6 months from now, you'd look back and realize that this single decision to commit to daily discipline changed everything. That's determination. That's what Marcus Aurelius is teaching us. Not grand declarations, not intense motivation, but the simple, powerful commitment to show up every single day and make thy effort. This is the discipline that transforms lives. This is what makes everything you touch prosper. Here's where most people's determination breaks down. Obstacles. Something goes wrong. Progress stalls. An unexpected challenge appears. And suddenly, all that determination evaporates. They interpret the obstacle as a sign that maybe this isn't meant to be, a sign that they should quit, a sign that they're on the wrong path. But Marcus Aurelius saw obstacles completely differently. He wrote one of the most powerful lines in all of Stoic philosophy. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that again. What stands in the way becomes the way. This isn't just philosophical wordplay. This is a fundamental reframe that changes everything about how you engage with difficulty. Most people see obstacles as reasons to stop. Marcus saw them as opportunities to grow. Most people see challenges as evidence of failure. Marcus saw them as invitations to develop new capacities. And this perspective, this radical acceptance of difficulty as necessary rather than unfortunate, is what allows determination to persist when circumstances turn against you. Because they will turn against you. That's guaranteed. If you're doing anything meaningful, anything that requires growth, you will face obstacles. You will encounter resistance. You will be tested. The question isn't whether challenges will come. The question is, how will you interpret them? Will you see them as stop signs or as stepping stones? Think about it this way. Every obstacle is revealing something. It's showing you where you're weak, where your strategy is flawed, where you need to develop new skills or different approaches. Without obstacles, you would never develop resilience. You would never discover what you're truly capable of. You would remain untested, unproven, and ultimately, unfulfilled. Marcus Aurelius didn't become one of history's greatest philosophers because his life was easy. He became great because his life was impossibly difficult, and he chose to use every difficulty as raw material for growth. He faced wars he didn't want to fight. He dealt with betrayals from people he trusted. He lived through a plague that killed millions. He was surrounded by corruption and chaos, and through it all, he maintained his determination. Not by pretending things were fine, but by accepting reality completely and asking, how can I respond to this in a way that strengthens me? This is the mindset that makes everything prosper, because when you stop resisting obstacles and start using them, when you stop seeing problems as reasons to quit and start seeing them as challenges to overcome, you become unstoppable. Every setback becomes a setup. Every failure becomes feedback. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity, and your determination doesn't just survive difficulty, it's strengthened by it. Let me tell you about a man who embodies this. He started a business that failed, then another that failed. He lost everything multiple times. He was rejected more times than he could count. And through it all, he kept going. Why? Not because he was delusional, but because he had determined that each failure was teaching him something essential, that each obstacle was refining his approach, that every rejection was filtering out what wouldn't work so he could discover what would. Eventually, he succeeded, massively. And when people asked him how he maintained his determination through so much failure, he said, I didn't see them as failures. I saw them as experiments. And you can't fail at an experiment, you only gather data. That's the Marcus Aurelius mindset. That's what allows determination to persist through anything. You need to adopt this perspective. You need to stop interpreting obstacles as evidence that you should quit and start seeing them as evidence that you're growing. Because easy things don't make you stronger. Comfortable situations don't develop character. Smooth paths don't build determination. It's the obstacles, the challenges, the difficult moments that forge you into someone capable of making everything prosper. So when the next obstacle appears, and it will, don't ask, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? How is this making me stronger? How can I use this? That shift in question changes everything, because it transforms you from a victim of circumstances into a student of life. from someone who's being stopped to someone who's being trained. And when you're being trained, when you're actively learning from every challenge, prosperity becomes inevitable because you're constantly evolving, constantly adapting, constantly becoming more capable. This is the determination that never breaks. This is what Marcus Aurelius teaches us. The obstacle isn't in your way. It is the way. There's a problem with how most people approach their goals. They want everything. They chase multiple dreams simultaneously. They scatter their energy across dozens of interests, hoping something will work out. And then they wonder why nothing prospers. Marcus Aurelius understood something fundamental about determination. It requires focus, concentrated energy. The discipline to say no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present. Do not disturb yourself by thinking of the whole of your life. Do not exhaust your thoughts on what may still be in store for you, but on the present work." The present work. Singular. Not works. Not all the things you might do someday. The thing you're doing now. This is radically different from how most people operate. We live in a culture that celebrates busyness, that confuses activity with progress, that makes you feel like you should be doing more. Always more. But more isn't better. Focused is better. Think about the sun. Dispersed sunlight warms the earth, but concentrated sunlight focused through a lens can start a fire. Same energy, different application, completely different results. Your determination works the same way. Scattered across too many pursuits, it warms nothing. But focused intensely on one thing, it can ignite transformation. This is why successful people often seem to have an almost obsessive quality. They're not scattered. They're not dabbling in everything. They've chosen something that matters to them, and they're pouring everything into it. Not forever, but for now, until it's done, until it prospers. Marcus Aurelius, despite being emperor of the largest empire in the world, didn't try to do everything. He focused on what was essential: justice, wisdom, duty, virtue. Everything else was secondary. And because his energy was focused, because his determination was concentrated on what truly mattered, he excelled. He led effectively. He thought deeply. He wrote philosophy that has lasted 2,000 years. That's what focused determination creates: legacy, impact, prosperity that compounds far beyond your lifetime. But focus requires sacrifice. It requires saying no. It requires disappointing people. It requires letting opportunities pass because they're not aligned with your primary purpose. This is uncomfortable, especially in a world that tells you to keep all your options open, to hedge your bets, to never commit fully to anything in case it doesn't work out. But that strategy guarantees mediocrity, because excellence, true prosperity in any domain, requires commitment. Deep, focused, unwavering commitment. You can't become world-class at something while also being pretty good at 10 other things. The math doesn't work. Time and energy are finite, so you have to choose. What matters most? What deserves your focused determination? And once you've chosen, you have to protect that choice. You have to build boundaries around your time and energy. You have to become comfortable with saying, "That's interesting, but it's not my focus right now." This is difficult, because opportunities will come that look attractive. Distractions will appear that seem important. Other people will want your energy for their priorities. And if you're not clear on your focus, if your determination isn't anchored to a specific purpose, you'll get pulled in 1,000 directions. You'll stay busy but never make real progress. Marcus teaches us that real power comes from concentration. From taking all your energy, all your determination, all your effort, and directing it at one target until that target yields. Think about a river. When a river spreads out over a wide plain, it becomes shallow, slow, easy to cross. But when that same river is forced through a narrow canyon, it becomes deep, fast, powerful, capable of carving through stone. Your determination needs to be the river in the canyon, concentrated, powerful, unstoppable. So here's what you need to do. Look at your life right now. Look at all the things you're trying to do, all the goals you're pursuing, all the commitments you've made. and ask yourself, what's essential? What's the one thing that, if you focused on it completely, would transform everything else? That's where your determination belongs. Not scattered, not divided, but concentrated there. And everything else? Let it go. Not forever, but for now. Until the essential thing prospers. Until your focused determination creates the transformation you're seeking. This is how everything you do will prosper. Not by doing more, but by doing less, better. By concentrating your determination on what truly matters until it yields results that compound into abundance. Focus is power, and determined focus is unstoppable. We need to talk about something that destroys more determination than almost anything else. Impatience. You start strong, you're determined, you're focused. You're showing up daily, and then nothing happens. At least, nothing visible. No immediate results, no obvious progress, no validation that your efforts are working. And that's when doubt creeps in. That's when you start questioning whether this is worth it, whether you should try something else, whether maybe this just isn't meant for you. This is where most people quit. Right before the breakthrough. Right before the compounding starts to show. Right before everything they've been working toward begins to prosper. Marcus Aurelius understood this challenge intimately. He wrote, "No random actions, none not based on underlying principles." What he's saying is, trust the process. Trust that consistent action based on sound principles will eventually produce results, even when you can't see them yet. This is patience, but not passive patience. Not sitting around hoping things will work out. Active patience. Continuing to take action even when the results aren't immediately visible. Think about a bamboo tree. You plant the seed, you water it, you tend to it, and for 5 years, nothing appears above ground. Nothing. You're putting in all this effort and seeing 0 visible results. But underneath, something extraordinary is happening. The roots are spreading. Deep, strong, expansive roots that will eventually support something remarkable. And then, in the 6th year, the bamboo shoots up, 90 feet in 6 weeks. Did the growth happen in 6 weeks? No. It happened over 6 years. But it was invisible until the foundation was strong enough to support explosive growth. Your determination works the same way. The results you're creating through your daily discipline, through your focused effort, through your consistent action, they're accumulating beneath the surface. And if you quit before they become visible, you'll never see what you were building toward. You'll abandon the bamboo right before it shoots up. This is why patience is essential. Not passive waiting, but active patience. The determination to keep showing up, keep taking action, keep trusting the process, even when you can't see immediate results. Marcus faced this constantly. Many of the reforms he implemented, many of the decisions he made, wouldn't show their value for years or even decades. But he made them anyway. Because he understood that meaningful change takes time. He wasn't looking for quick wins. He was building something that would last. And that's what you need to do too. You need to shift your timeline. You need to stop expecting immediate gratification and start thinking in terms of seasons, years, decades. Not because you should delay satisfaction, but because real prosperity, lasting prosperity, is built slowly. It's built through consistent effort over extended time. The problem is, we live in a culture of instant everything. Instant communication, instant entertainment, instant feedback. And we've started expecting instant results from our efforts. But nature doesn't work that way. Growth takes time. Development takes time. Transformation takes time. And if you try to rush it, if you try to force faster results than the natural timing allows, you'll either burn out or build something fragile that collapses under pressure. Marcus teaches us to align with natural timing, to understand that everything has its season, that there's a time for planting and a time for harvest, and that trying to harvest before things are ripe only destroys what you're trying to cultivate. This is active patience, working diligently while trusting that the work will yield fruit in its proper time. But here's what makes this possible. Detachment from outcome. You need to be determined about your actions, but detached from your results. You need to focus on what you can control, your effort, your consistency, your focus, and release what you can't control. The timing, the external validation, the specific outcomes. When you do this, when you commit to the process without attachment to immediate results, something beautiful happens. The waiting stops being painful. The delay stops feeling like failure. You start finding satisfaction in the doing itself, in showing up, in maintaining your discipline, in honoring your determination. And paradoxically, this is when results start appearing. Not because you stopped caring about them, but because you stopped letting their absence stop you from continuing. Marcus wrote, "Concentrate every minute on doing what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness, tenderly, willingly, with justice, and on freeing yourself from all other distractions. Do what's in front of you, not what might happen later, not what you hope will result, but what's here now requiring your attention. That's active patience, that's the determination that makes everything prosper. Because you're not wasting energy worrying about timing. You're investing all your energy in the work itself. And work done with that kind of presence, with that kind of focus, always yields results. Always. It's only a matter of when, not if. So be patient, actively patient. Keep showing up. Keep doing the work. Trust that beneath the surface something extraordinary is building. And when the bamboo shoots up, when your efforts finally become visible, you'll be grateful you didn't quit during the invisible years. There's something that determines whether your efforts will prosper or collapse under their own weight. Integrity. Not integrity in the moralistic sense, but integrity in the structural sense. Are your actions aligned with your values? Is what you're doing sustainable? Are you building on solid ground or on sand? Marcus Aurelius believed that without integrity, determination becomes destructive. You might achieve your goals, but at what cost? You might succeed externally while failing internally. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This is the foundation. Before you can make everything prosper, you need to ensure that everything you're doing is built on truth, on values you can sustain, on principles you won't regret. Because here's what happens when you're determined towards something that violates your integrity. You succeed and feel empty, or you fail and feel relieved. Either way, you lose. Think about someone who's determined to build wealth through deception. They might succeed financially, but they'll fail spiritually. They'll have money but lose their self-respect. They'll achieve the goal but hate who they became in the process. That's not prosperity. That's bankruptcy of a different kind. True prosperity, the kind Marcus Aurelius teaches, requires that your determination is aligned with your deepest values. That what you're building externally matches who you are internally. This is integrity, and it's non-negotiable. Without it, your determination will eventually turn against you, because part of you, the deepest part, will resist what you're trying to create. You'll self-sabotage. You'll lose motivation at critical moments. You'll find ways to undermine your own success. Why? Because your psyche is protecting you. It's saying, this path doesn't honor who we really are. This success would require us to betray ourselves. I'm not going to let that happen. Carl Jung called this the self, the part of your psyche that knows your authentic nature and will not allow you to permanently violate it. You can push against it for a while, but eventually, it will assert itself. This is why so many successful people feel miserable. They've achieved everything they thought they wanted, but in ways that violated their integrity. And now they're trapped in a life that looks good but feels wrong. Marcus Aurelius teaches us to avoid this trap entirely, to ensure that our determination is always aligned with virtue, with truth, with what we can sustain without self-betrayal. He asks, is this action consistent with wisdom? Is it just? Is it brave in the right way? Is it temperate? These are the filters. Before you pursue something with determination, you need to ask, can I pursue this with integrity? Will achieving this require me to become someone I don't want to be? If the answer is no, If you can't maintain integrity while pursuing this goal, then you need to either change the goal or change your approach. Because success at the cost of integrity isn't success, it's slow poison. But when your determination is aligned with integrity, when what you're building externally matches who you are internally, everything changes. You have total energy available. There's no internal conflict. No part of you is fighting against what you're doing. You're unified, whole, powerful. And from that place, prosperity isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Because you're not working against yourself. You're not splitting your energy between achieving something and managing guilt about how you're achieving it. You're simply moving forward, clearly, powerfully, sustainably. This is what makes everything prosper. Not just temporary success, but lasting prosperity that you can actually enjoy because you didn't have to betray yourself to achieve it. So before you commit your determination to anything, ask yourself these questions. Can I pursue this without compromising my values? Will the person I need to become to achieve this be someone I respect? Am I building something I'll be proud of, not just something that looks impressive? If you can answer yes, then pour your determination into it completely, because you've found something worth building. But if the answer is no, if achieving this would require you to violate your integrity, then let it go. Find a different goal or a different path, because temporary success built on compromised integrity always collapses eventually. But lasting prosperity built on solid values only strengthens over time. This is the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius. This is the foundation that makes determination powerful rather than destructive. Integrity first, determination second, prosperity third, in that order. Always. Here's a paradox about determination. To be truly determined, you also need to be flexible. Most people think determination means stubbornness, sticking to the plan no matter what, refusing to change course, pushing forward regardless of new information. But that's not determination. That's rigidity, and rigidity breaks under pressure. True determination, the kind Marcus Aurelius practiced, is flexible. It's committed to the outcome but adaptable about the method. It knows when to persist and when to pivot. He wrote, "The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. It requires being prepared for sudden shocks and changes." Wrestling, not dancing. Dancing follows a choreographed sequence. Wrestling requires constant adaptation to what your opponent does. Life is wrestling, and your determination needs to be wrestling-style determination, strong in core commitment but fluid in response. Think about water. Water is determined to reach the ocean, but it doesn't insist on a straight path. It flows around obstacles. It finds the lowest point. It adapts to the terrain while never losing sight of where it's going. That's the model. That's how determination prospers everything it touches. You need to be absolutely clear on what you're determined toward, your purpose, your values, your vision. But you need to be completely flexible about how you get there. Most people do the opposite. They're vague about where they're going, but rigid about how they'll get there. And then they wonder why they keep hitting walls. The path will change. It has to. Because you can't predict everything. Circumstances shift. New information emerges. Opportunities appear that you couldn't have planned for. And if your determination is rigid, if you can't adapt, you'll miss these opportunities. You'll keep pushing against doors that are closed while doors you didn't know existed are opening beside you. Marcus Aurelius faced this constantly. He had plans for his reign, visions for how things should unfold, but reality kept presenting different challenges. Wars he didn't anticipate, betrayals he didn't expect, circumstances that demanded completely different responses. And each time, he adapted, not by abandoning his principles, but by finding new ways to express them in the current situation. That's the key. The principles don't change, but the application does. You're determined to build a business. That principle holds. But maybe the market shifts. Maybe your initial product doesn't resonate. Maybe a completely different opportunity emerges. Rigid determination says, "No, I committed to this specific plan. I'm sticking to it even if it's clearly not working." Flexible determination says, "I'm committed to building something valuable. This approach isn't working. What can I learn? How can I adapt?" What's the new path forward? See the difference? Same core commitment, completely different relationship to method. This is what allows determination to prosper everything it touches. Because you're not wasting energy fighting reality. You're working with it. You're adapting to it. You're letting it inform your approach while staying true to your purpose. Carl Jung talked about this too. He said that the psyche naturally compensates for imbalance. If you're too rigid, life will force you toward flexibility. If you're too scattered, life will demand focus. The wise person doesn't wait for life to force adaptation. They practice it willingly. They stay attuned to feedback. They adjust course before the crash happens. This is what Marcus means by being prepared for sudden shocks. Not by building walls, but by building adaptability, by training yourself to respond fluidly to whatever emerges. So here's the practice. Maintain absolute clarity on your purpose. Know why you're doing what you're doing. But hold your methods lightly. Be willing to experiment. Be willing to pivot. Be willing to say, that didn't work. What else could I try? This isn't giving up. This is intelligent persistence. This is determination that's strong enough to admit when something isn't working, and wise enough to find a better way. And when you operate this way, when your determination is both committed and flexible, you become unstoppable. Because you're not breaking yourself against immovable obstacles. You're flowing around them, finding the path of least resistance, maintaining momentum even when the terrain changes. This is how everything prospers, not through rigid force, but through adaptive strength. The bamboo bends in the wind but doesn't break. The river changes its course but never stops flowing. And your determination, when practiced with wisdom, does the same. Stay committed, stay flexible, and watch how everything you touch begins to flourish. We need to talk about something that sustains determination over the long term. Progress, not huge breakthroughs, not dramatic transformations, but small, consistent wins that prove to you that your efforts are working. Because here's the truth. Determination is easier to maintain when you can see that it's paying off. When you have evidence that your consistency matters. When you can track measurable improvement. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He didn't expect to become perfect overnight. He didn't demand massive transformations. He focused on small improvements, daily progress, incremental growth. He wrote, "Receive without pride, let go without attachment." Each day brought small victories and small setbacks, and he treated both the same, with equanimity, not getting too high about wins or too low about losses, just noting them and continuing forward. This is the mindset that allows determination to compound, because you're not demanding perfection. You're just demanding progress. And progress, even tiny progress, is incredibly powerful. Because it builds momentum, it creates confidence, it proves that the process is working. Think about it like compound interest. A small amount invested consistently grows exponentially over time, not because any single deposit is huge, but because they accumulate. They build on each other. They multiply. Your determination works the same way. Each small win, each day you show up, each obstacle you overcome, these compound. They build on each other. They create a momentum that eventually becomes unstoppable. But you have to recognize them. You have to celebrate them. You have to use them as fuel to keep going. Most people discount small wins. They think, that's nothing. I need to achieve something significant before I can feel good about my progress. But that's a trap, because if you only celebrate big wins, you'll spend most of your time feeling like you're failing, and that erodes determination faster than anything. You need to learn to recognize and appreciate incremental progress, to see each small step as evidence that you're moving in the right direction. Did you show up today when you didn't feel like it? That's a win. Did you resist a distraction? That's a win. Did you learn something from a failure? That's a win. These aren't trivial. These are the building blocks of transformation. And when you treat them as significant, when you acknowledge them, you reinforce the behavior. You make it more likely you'll repeat it tomorrow. This is how you build sustainable determination. Not through willpower alone, but through progress loops. Small wins that motivate continued action that creates more wins. Marcus practiced this daily. He kept journals where he reflected on what went well, what he learned, how he improved. He wasn't focused on becoming perfect. He was focused on becoming better, one day at a time. And over years, those small improvements compounded into wisdom that changed the world. You can do the same. You need to create a practice of recognizing progress. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what went well today? Where did I show up? What did I learn? Write it down, not to brag, but to build evidence for yourself that your determination is working, that your consistency matters, that you're actually making progress even when it doesn't feel dramatic. Because the truth is, transformation is rarely dramatic in the moment. It's only dramatic in retrospect, when you look back 6 months or a year and realize how much has actually changed. But you can only get to that retrospect by maintaining determination through all the days that don't feel transformative. And you maintain that determination by recognizing the small wins along the way. This is the compound effect. This is what makes everything prosper. Not overnight success, but consistent, incremental progress that accumulates into extraordinary results over time. So stop waiting for the big breakthrough. Stop discounting the small victories. Start celebrating every step forward, no matter how small, because those steps add up, they compound, and eventually they carry you exactly where you're determined to go. We've traveled far together. We've explored what true determination is, where it comes from, how to maintain it, and what makes it prosper. Now we arrive at the ultimate destination, becoming unbreakable, not invulnerable, not immune to pain or difficulty, but unbreakable in your core, solid in your commitment, unwavering in your purpose. This is what Marcus Aurelius achieved, not because his life was easy, but because he built something within himself that external circumstances couldn't touch. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the final truth. Your determination doesn't depend on favorable conditions. It doesn't require things to go well. It doesn't need external validation. It exists independently, as a choice, as a commitment, as who you've decided to be regardless of what happens around you. When you reach this place, when your determination is rooted this deeply, you become truly unstoppable. Because nothing external can break what's internally solid. Marcus faced betrayals, losses, hardships that would destroy most people. And he remained steady, not because he didn't feel the pain, but because his determination wasn't dependent on avoiding pain. It was dependent on meaning, on purpose, on living according to his values regardless of cost. And that made him unbreakable. This is what you're building toward. This is the ultimate gift of cultivating true determination. You become someone who can endure anything because you're anchored to something that can't be taken away. Your purpose, your values, your commitment to showing up. These aren't contingent on circumstances. They're choices you make every single day. And the more you make them, the stronger they become. Until they're not just something you do. They're who you are. This is integrity at the deepest level. Complete alignment between who you are and what you do. No gap, no pretense, no performance. Just authentic, unwavering commitment to what matters most. And from this place, everything prospers. Not because you force it to, but because you're operating from such a solid foundation that everything you touch is infused with that solidity. Your relationships prosper because you're showing up fully. Your work prospers because you're bringing complete focus. Your life prospers because you're living intentionally. This is the promise. This is what Marcus Aurelius teaches us. Have determination, real determination rooted in purpose and expressed through discipline, and everything you do will prosper. Not immediately, not without difficulty, but inevitably. Because determination, when practiced with wisdom, is the most powerful force in human experience. It's what transforms vision into reality, potential into achievement, dreams into legacy. So make the commitment, choose your purpose, Build your discipline. Embrace obstacles. Focus your energy. Practice patience. Maintain integrity. Stay flexible. Celebrate progress. And watch what unfolds. Watch how your life transforms, how opportunities appear, how doors open, how everything you touch begins to flourish, not because you're lucky, not because things are easy, but because you're determined, truly, deeply, unshakably determined. And that determination, that unwavering commitment to what matters, makes all the difference. This is your path forward. This is what prosperity looks like. Not external accumulation, but internal transformation that naturally creates external abundance. Welcome to the life you're meant to live, the life where everything you do prospers. Not someday, but starting now, because you've decided. And that decision changes everything.